At 15, I've always felt like the outsider in my own family, especially compared to my 14-year-old adopted brother, Oliver. Adopted when he was just 5, Oliver somehow fits in more easily than I ever have. My parents often joke about how much he resembles them, saying he's more the ideal child, though meant to be light-hearted. Their comments always sting. To the outside world, we might look like a picture-perfect family, the kind you'd see on magazine covers, with our conventional beauty, yet I've never felt like I fit that mold. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as a child, and managing my weight has been a lifelong struggle. My parents were strict about what I ate, which only made me sneak food in secret, feeling deprived rather than cared for. 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which has made life even more challenging. Some days, the pain is so severe that I need a wheelchair, and that's been a difficult adjustment, both physically and emotionally. Already an introvert, I've retreated even further into my room, not wanting to burden anyone. I'm deeply lonely but resigned to not asking for too much from those around me. One of the few traditions I still looked forward to was our annual family Christmas photo. Despite everything, I still wanted to be part of that, to feel included. But this year, as I dressed up and prepared to join, my parents awkwardly told me they thought it would be better if the photo was just of them and Oliver. They said my wheelchair would spoil the picture. Hurt, I offered to stand for a few shots, but they declined, making it clear they didn't want me there at all. Devastated, I went back to my room and cried, with no one even bothering to check on me. That moment broke me, and I called my grandmother. She's always been a source of strength for me, someone who rebuilt her life after being widowed young. She listened patiently as I poured my heart out, then took swift action, changing her will and making her support for me known in a way that shocked my parents. It was a wake-up call, highlighting the deep fractures in our family dynamic. While my parents were upset, I had already come to terms with the fact that their love for me had conditions attached, unlike my grandmother's unconditional support. My grandmother had always offered me the option of living with her, but I had hesitated, clinging to the hope that my parents would one day treat me better. That Christmas, though, I finally realized it wasn't going to happen. My presence in this family wasn't really wanted, it was tolerated at best. The pain of being excluded from something as simple as a family photo was overwhelming, but my grandmother's unwavering love gave me the strength to see the truth. When I called her, sobbing and feeling more alone than ever, she promised she'd take me with her as soon as she got back from her cruise. Her life was so different from mine, full of friends, laughter, and adventure, while I spent my days in silence, confined to my room. In the days before her return, nothing changed at home. My parents and Oliver acted like everything was fine, as if they hadn't just pushed me further into isolation. When my grandmother finally arrived, I was the one who greeted her at the door. My parents were clueless about what was coming. They greeted her as if everything was normal, not knowing that I had told her everything. When she confronted them about excluding me from the photo, they were stunned, unsure how she knew. Instead of apologizing, they doubled down on their excuse, claiming they didn't want to inconvenience me by asking me to stand or include my wheelchair in the shot. I couldn't hold back any longer. I told them exactly how I felt, that their excuses were just a cover for their discomfort with me. I pointed out how differently they treated Oliver, how he, despite being adopted, was embraced as their own while I, their biological daughter, was left on the outside. Oliver couldn't meet my eyes, maybe out of guilt or acknowledgement of the truth. My parents, though, accused me of being overdramatic, telling me I was spoiled for feeling this way. They couldn't see that their actions weren't just hurtful, they were damaging my sense of belonging. As painful as it was, standing up for myself was liberating. With my grandmother there, I realized I didn't have to stay in a place where I wasn't valued. I deserved to be somewhere I was truly loved, and with her, I knew I would find that. I was ready to leave, not just the house, but the conditional love that had defined my life there. My grandmother had always offered me a safe haven, and I was finally ready to accept it. I knew with her, I could start fresh, in a place where I truly belonged. Now that we've begun to reconnect, things between my brother and me are gradually improving. My conversation with my grandmother opened my eyes to many things, including how Oliver had been influenced by our parents' behavior toward me. Without fully realizing it, he had mirrored their actions, not understanding the harm it caused, but his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and reach out meant a lot. At home, just as I was preparing to stand up for myself, my grandmother stepped in, making it clear she was there to put an end to the mistreatment I had endured for so long. My parents looked bewildered when she announced that I would be going to live with her. They had always made me feel like a burden, and now they didn't even try to stop her. It was a painful validation of what I had always felt, that they didn't truly want me to be part of their lives. The silence after her declaration hung heavily in the air. When she revealed her plan to take me away, my parents seemed indifferent at first, but everything changed when she said she was cutting them out of her will. The mention of inheritance shattered their calm facade, and suddenly they were scrambling, trying to justify themselves and defend their behavior, revealing just how materialistic their motives were. My grandmother, having built a successful grocery business, had amassed significant wealth. Though I had never cared about that, I loved her for who she was, not for what she had. But my parents, their sudden desperation made their priorities clear. My grandmother held up the revised documents, explaining that everything would now go to Oliver and me. The drama intensified as my parents begged and bargained, but my grandmother remained firm, unmoved by their sudden show of emotion. She told me to pack my things and be ready to leave with her immediately. I was more than ready. I knew in my heart that living with her would be healthier, more peaceful. As I packed, my parents' pleas continued, but Oliver was the only one who seemed genuinely affected by my leaving. When we finally drove away, it was a strange mix of liberation and sadness. I was leaving behind so much pain, yet I was also stepping into a new chapter of my life, a chapter filled with my grandmother's love and support. Living with her brought a peace I hadn't known before. Being closer to school meant more rest and less stress, and with every day, I felt myself healing a little more. Not long after I left, Oliver reached out with a heartfelt message. He apologized for his past behavior, acknowledging how much he valued our family and my constant acceptance of him as my brother. Even when our parents hadn't treated me the same, he was eager to rebuild our bond, and we started by spending more time together at school. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The truth had been painful, but it also set me free. Now, with my grandmother's unwavering support and the mending of my relationship with Oliver, I finally felt like I was part of a family that truly cared for me. During one of our recent hangouts, Oliver confided something that weighed heavily on me. We were chatting casually, but when I asked how things were at home, he revealed that tensions were running high between our parents. Apparently, they had been locked in a cycle of blaming each other ever since I left. My mom had accused my dad of being the reason for so long, I felt pushed away, particularly when my dad suggested I be excluded from the family Christmas photo. My parents didn't see how painful that was for me. My dad claims it was my mom's overreaction that fueled most of the tension, often making it seem like raising me was the hardest challenge she had ever faced. During a casual conversation, Oliver mentioned that he was worried they might get divorced, given the growing strain in their relationship. His comment, though said in passing, has stayed with me, leaving me feeling unsettled. It's irrational, but part of me can't shake the feeling that if they do divorce, it would somehow be my fault. Maybe I overreacted about the photo incident, and perhaps they didn't mean to make me feel like a burden. These thoughts have been hard to shake, and I've found myself in a loop of self-blame and regret, even though I know their marital problems aren't my responsibility. Still, I can't help but feel like I'm being overly sensitive, but it's been weighing on my mind. That's why I'm turning to this community, to get some objective reassurance and clarity. For those curious, my grandmother recently revised her will to leave everything to Oliver and me because of how poorly my parents treated me. Oliver wasn't involved in any of the negative behavior, and given his age, both my grandmother and I believe he deserves a chance to learn and grow. Pushing him away because of our parents' actions wouldn't be fair, it would make us no better than them. Some have asked about Oliver's background. His biological mother was just 17 when she had him, and she had to drop out of college due to the pregnancy and her struggles with substance abuse. His father was mostly absent, only making occasional appearances. His maternal grandparents tried multiple times to help their daughter get her life together, but eventually, they encouraged her to consider adoption when Oliver was 7, believing it would give him a better future. My parents had already been exploring adoption because of complications from my mom's first pregnancy, and they learned about Oliver through a family connection. They fostered him before officially adopting him. Oliver still sees his biological grandparents monthly, but he's had no contact with his parents since the adoption. His mother finds it too painful to be around him, and his father completely disappeared from his life. Navigating these family dynamics has been tough, but opening up about them here is helping me process everything and hopefully find support from people who've gone through similar experiences. When my parents apologized recently, it felt more about their image than a genuine attempt to repair the relationship. It seemed like they wanted to smooth things over before I left for college, without addressing the deep-rooted issues. I regret some of the things I said during heated arguments in the past, especially about Oliver being adopted. I've since apologized to him because he means the world to me, and I never wanted him to feel like he wasn't truly part of our family. Despite everything, I've always seen him as my brother. The bond we share is something I'm determined to strengthen, despite the rough patches caused by our parents. We've both been through a lot, and I refuse to let our parents' behavior create a wedge between us anymore. I even told Oliver that if things at home ever became unbearable, he could come live with me and our grandmother. I'm not trying to pull him away from our parents, but I want him to know he has a safe and peaceful place to go if he needs it. The support I've received from this community has been overwhelming, and it's reassuring to know I'm not alone in this. When I confided in my grandmother about my fears of being responsible for my parents' problems, she firmly reminded me that none of this was my fault. She pointed out that their frustrations with each other had always been there, but now that I wasn't around as their target, they were directing it at each other. If they do end up divorcing, it's not because I stood up for myself, it's because they can't manage their own issues. Oliver reassured me too. When he mentioned their potential divorce, he wasn't trying to make me feel guilty, he was just answering my question. Recently, my parents showed up unannounced to talk about our strained relationship. They'd taken time off work to see me, but I wasn't in the right headspace that day. They said they wanted to spend time with me before I left for college and offered a half-hearted apology, saying they were sorry. I felt offended. Instead of admitting that their actions had genuinely hurt me, their words felt dismissive, and I wasn't ready for that conversation. I suggested they send their thoughts in an email or come back another time when I was better prepared to talk. I needed space to process everything, and rushing into a conversation wasn't going to fix anything meaningful. It might seem like I was avoiding the issue, but stepping back was necessary to manage the situation on my own terms, especially considering the emotional toll their past behavior had taken on me. Oliver understands why I made that choice and supports my decision to handle things this way. We've promised each other not to let family disputes come between us, no matter what happens with our parents. Our commitment is to stay close and supportive of one another, ensuring that the challenges we face don't undermine the trust and love we've worked hard to rebuild. This approach is about protecting our well-being and making sure that, regardless of what happens in our family, our relationship remains strong and intact. After several difficult interactions, it's clear that my parents aren't really focused on understanding me or fixing their past mistakes. During a recent conversation, I tried explaining that my feelings of hurt came from their actions, but instead of acknowledging that, they shifted the blame. They insisted that my distance was the reason they didn't realize I was struggling. It only confirmed what I already suspected. They were more interested in deflecting responsibility than offering a genuine apology. Frustrated and realizing that this cycle of blame was going nowhere, I asked them to leave. They resisted, saying we needed to have a full conversation, as if just talking would magically fix everything. They seemed to believe that because they had provided for me in the past, which were really just the basic responsibilities of being parents, they deserved my engagement. I couldn't continue without getting more upset, so I decided to retreat to my room. But then my dad escalated things by demanding I stay and finish the conversation. Thankfully, my grandmother stepped in. She calmly but firmly told him that raising his voice wasn't acceptable in her home, especially after the way they had treated me. She made it clear that if I chose not to engage, they had to respect that decision and leave. That moment was an eye-opener for all of us. It made me see more clearly than ever that their main concern wasn't really about making amends or our well-being. They were more worried about how it would look to others, about what people might think if they found out I was living with my grandmother. But I was done caring about their need to preserve appearances. I was focused on my future and my healing. After they left, my grandmother and I talked about whether I wanted to see them again anytime soon. And right now, my answer is a solid no. She supported my decision, promising me that she wouldn't let them drop by uninvited again. I also talked to Oliver about their visit. He was surprised by their behavior and said things had been tense at home since their return. I feel for him, but I know I need to maintain my distance for my own mental health. In a week, I'll be heading off to college, and I've already been accepted into my first-choice school. My grandmother has been amazing. She's arranged everything for my move and even plans to stay with me for the first couple of weeks to help me settle into my new apartment. It's a huge step, living on my own, but I feel ready and excited for what's ahead. Without the constant stress of dealing with my parents, my mental health has improved significantly. Oliver and I have agreed to keep in touch regularly, weekly FaceTime chats at the very least. While it's bittersweet leaving the security and comfort of my grandmother's home, I'm genuinely excited about this new chapter. The future feels bright, and I'm ready for it.